Greetings everyone, this is Enraged Eggplant and welcome to Dungeons and GURPS. In this video, I will tell you how to make a D&D sorcerer in GURPS. In the 3rd edition of D&D, all sorcerers had their spellcasting abilities thanks to their draconic heritage. But later on, this was expanded in a Dragon magazine article to cover some other magical creatures as well. In Pathfinder, basically any magical creature could create a sorcerer down the line. This is something I actually like, as after being converted to GURPS, it opens up many possibilities for both role-playing and mechanical diversity. First, I'll tell you how I represent sorcerer spellcasting in GURPS. Well, I use sorcery. It works well with only a few adjustments. And here they are. Alternative rituals from GURPS Thaumatology Sorcery page 7 are in effect. Optionally, the GM may allow the additional rituals from Super Sorcery, that's an article from Pyramid 3-105, that's cinematic magic, on a case-by-case basis. This is a permanent change to how your character works magic. However, experience has shown that it can be unbalancing for sorcerers to invoke alternative rituals to cast repeated spells with no FP cost in a fight. Because of that, the following rule is in effect. Every sorcerer's spell with no FP cost takes the longer of normal casting time or 1d plus 1 divided by 2 seconds to cast, rounded up. Roll for this when beginning to cast. If you do not like the result, you can abort, wasting your action for this turn. In most non-combat situations, you can simply ignore this limitation. This house rule was invented by Jason Levine, and I will link his original post in the description. Sorcerer spellcasting is subject to repeated attempts. This is an optional rule from page 159 of GURPS Powers. I like this rule in general, and most of my spellcasters are penalized like that. When rolling a critical failure on a casting roll, use the critical spell failure table. If the sorcerer is using a blood magic alternative ritual, use a diabolic or horrific table. That's from page 258 of GURPS Thaumatology. A sorcerer must limit his sorcerer's empowerment with limited scope to represent his bloodline. I flipped through many D&D and Pathfinder books, regardless of the edition, and consolidated a huge list of possible bloodlines that should satisfy even the snowflakiest of special snowflakes. I'll link it in the description, but I'll probably also have to update that list, as it is a bit outdated. Keep in mind that these bloodlines not only limit the scope of the sorcerer's magic, but also serve as unusual background for appropriate traits. For example, breath weapons for the draconic bloodline, horns for the infernal bloodline, etc. Many sorcerers have appropriate unnatural features as well. And that's it, the sorcerer is probably the simplest D&D class to represent in GURPS. But if, for example, you do not want the ability to improvise spells, you can instead just buy a spell or multiple spells as alternative abilities. This is absolutely okay, but they still should be restricted in the same way and abide by the same rules. I also created a 150-point sorcerer template based on the 250 Dungeon Fantasy Sorcerer from Pyramid 382. But in my opinion, you should only use my template as something of a list of traits for inspiration, because sorcerers can be drastically different from each other. For example, the template by default has IQ 12, but why wouldn't magical abilities awaken in a character with IQ 9? You can build anything you want, and no two sorcerers will be the same. I included a list of various advantages and disadvantages that would serve well as something of a side effect of your blood admixture. For example, a sorcerer with a celestial bloodline might have a positive appearance, while a sorcerer with an abyssal bloodline might be ugly. A sorcerer with a draconic bloodline might have a level of charisma and extended lifespan, but also greed, as his draconic heritage would make him obsessed with accumulated treasure. The possibilities are endless here, and even many supernatural traits would work well, unusual biochemistry, vulnerability to some substance that would harm the sorcerer's ancestor, and so on. Just don't forget to spice up your appearance with a couple levels of unusual features. What kind of spells you want to learn is entirely up to you. It all depends on what your bloodline is and what kind of character you envision. In general, you should only take spells that you expect to cast often or that you will want to cast reliably without taking too much time. Many spells that people point at laugh, saying who would in their right mind learn that, are actually situationally useful. You should always keep these utility spells in mind for hardcore improvisation that you can use when you have enough time to rest and recover FP even if you fail your casting roll. So your learned spells will probably be combat spells such as defensive buffs and offensive missiles, and mobility spells such as personal flight. And do not forget that you can have multiple active spell slots. Sometimes it can be used to a great effect. And that's it for this video. I hope this was helpful and I'll see you in the next one.